Hiya! Welcome to LSB Feasters Radio Channel, where we keep great radio from the past alive. And today we're going to Orlando, Florida, which is actually my home base. I actually host a morning show right here at WPOZ Z88.3 in Orlando. And today we're going to feature Scott and Casey. Scott and Casey were a kind of popular weekend show on KFI Los Angeles. They did a lot of fill-in. They were there for many years at KFI. Sounded great, I thought. Some people actually said they sounded a little like KFI's afternoon show, John and Ken. Well, Scott and Casey finally had the opportunity to leave KFI and go do their own afternoon show in Orlando. And they were at 580 WDBO. Now, they were there for about a year or so. Management hired them knowing the type of show they were doing. But once they got there, it seemed like they were running into a lot of headwinds with management. And, well, it was probably a little over the top for WDBO, which is a very conservative talk station. And Scott and Casey, well, they're kind of out there. By the way, a big thank you to Casey Bartholomew, who provided this air check. Give them a listen. It's Scott and Casey on 580 WDBO Orlando.
Hi, News Talk 580 WDBO. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah. Hi. How you doing?
What is this, a letter home from camp?
Welcome to the show, you listener, you.
Hi.
Hi. It's like, hi, buddy. 290. No, that's not yet. News Talk 580 WDBO. Thanks for tuning into the Scott and Casey show. He's Scott. Hi, I'm Casey. This is where we talk about the issues you really care about every Monday through Friday from 3 to 7 p.m. right here on the lowest rated talk show in all of Central Florida.
Don't forget to listen to Dr. Laura after the news at 7 right here on WDBO.
Hi, the numbers are 290-0058, 290-0058, or hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless services phone. The call is free, or you can call 800-329-5858, 800-329-5858, and that call's free too. We're going to talk to you about stupid children who are suing for the right to be stupid, as near as I can tell.
I believe that is one of our constitutional rights, to be stupid.
To keep and bear stupidity?
Yes.
In order to maintain a well-organized stupid militia?
Right.
Should any smart nations attack, they'll be so overwhelmed by our stupidity, they won't know what to do with themselves?
You say stupid militia as if somehow, what, there's militia and stupid militia? As if somehow there's a smart militia somewhere?
Somewhere there must be a smart militia. Nowhere in this country, but somewhere there's got, maybe in Canada. Since the Canadians, by and large, are stupid, the militias probably have to be dumb, have to be smart. In one of the nation's first court challenges involving a new wave of higher state education standards, 14 actual students and their parents have sued a North Carolina school district over its policy that would automatically deny students grade promotion unless they pass the statewide reading and mathematics tests. Now, the lawsuit maintains that the public schools violated the rights of the students.
Ooh.
There's that constitutional right to be stupid.
That's right.
By using the single set of tests alone to determine whether they should move on to the next grade. What else were they supposed to do?
Well, let me make sure I understand this.
Look at headshots or something to see if they were good-looking enough to be in the next grade?
I mean, you spend the year in first grade, right? You learn 2 plus 2, and if you wrote, if at the end of the end of the year they pass out this test, and if you wrote 2 plus 2 equals Thursday, well, then chances are that maybe there's a problem and you need to stay in first grade.
Now, the suit argues that the tests are a measure only of how well schools in North Carolina are teaching the state-mandated curriculum, not of individual performances. However, the individuals are taking said exams, and if the individuals are failing said exams, they're probably not learning what they need to know. It may be a statement against how poorly the teachers are teaching the information, but the kids still aren't learning it, so there's no reason to put them up to the next grade. There's no reason to reward stupidity, all right? That's all they're asking to do here. They want a legal judgment in favor of making stupidity of rewarding stupidity.
Well, going back to what you just said about how they feel that somehow these tests are a measure only of how well the schools are teaching,
yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me. No, the tests are really more about how well your child received the information. Because, you know what, whether they tested good or not, that information is there on the test. The stuff that your kid was supposed to learn during the year is all on the test, and they're supposed to be able to throw it back up onto a piece of paper. And if they can't do it, that says something about how well that student learned.
Fascist.
Well, I'm sorry.
290-0058, 290-0058. Toll free 1-800-329-5858, 1-800-329-5858, or just hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless services phone. The call is free. Want to know if you think these new nationwide tests in order to figure out whether or not your child knows enough about reading and mathematics in order to be promoted to the next grade. Want to know if you think they're fair, because there are actual students supported by their actual parents who don't think these kids need to know what they learned in school in order to be promoted to the next grade. It's really kind of silly.
I should be allowed to sit there and pick my nose all year long, and then come the end of the year, I should be able to move on to the next grade, whether I learned anything or not. That's basically what they're saying.
Even if you fail the test, even if you don't know what you were supposed to learn in that class, now, in order to be able to survive, to excel in the next grades, all this does is take stupid kids from one class and throw them into the next grade where they're not going to learn anything either.
Well, if I didn't learn remedial math, how am I going to learn algebra? That's exactly the problem. They're going to keep going and going and going, and then they'll graduate high school and they won't know anything.
I don't go with that, because I learned remedial math, and I would be lost in an algebra.
Well, but what I'm saying is, because you can't learn algebra without the
now the equal
won't go the other
the
way.
Equal protection complaint, which was brought by a mix of white, black, and Hispanic students. Remember what we talked about yesterday? No Asian students in there, because there are no dumb Asian people.
There are dumb Asian people.
Produce one, and then I'll renege.
I think I'm going to have to leave this program. I'm going to have to take a sabbatical for a couple of years, and I don't care if I have to go to the Orient and find someone. I will find someone. I'll come back a few years down the road, maybe a little wiser. Maybe I'll be a shaman somewhere, but I will have found a stupid Asian guy.
You won't, because they don't exist, unless they were dropped on their head as children. There's no such thing as a stupid Asian guy. Now. The protection complaint, equal protection complaint, was brought by a mix of white, black, and Hispanic students, all of whom had failed the test. Whoa! You know what? It might have some credibility if they could get a few kids who actually passed the exam.
Who thought it was wrong.
Yeah, who thought that this was ridiculous.
You know, if these 14 students had passed the test, none of them would be saying anything.
There wouldn't be a lawsuit if they had learned what they were supposed to learn. Also, the protection complaint, equal protection complaint, also charges that the exams given to all the North Carolina students in the 3rd through 8th grade violated the rights of minority children.
Whoa.
Who have the right to be stupid, apparently. Minority children have the right to be stupid. They say who have had disproportionately low test scores, and special education students whom the district allowed no extraordinary accommodation in the test taking. We can't do that for special education students, because not passing that test proves that they have, on some level, proves that they have they lack educational skills of other students. I mean, you can't just lower the standards of the test and say, hey, a kid who can't read, can't write, still passes and should still be promoted to the next grade. They have to continue their special education process through a separate educational pattern. Yeah. I know, because I have a friend, 2 close friends who are special education teachers.
Yeah, you're right. It's somehow we're supposed to say, well, you're stupid, so it's okay for you to go on and not learn all of this harder stuff.
Yeah, maybe the 14 students and their parents who are suing. Maybe they're suing to get into the special education classes so their kids will finally look smart because they're not retarded.
And I think that's something that people need to understand the distinction of. We're talking about special education students who have the wherewithal in their brain to be in normal classes.
Yeah.
We're not talking about, they paint a picture here, and forgive me for my wording, and I hope I don't offend anybody, of the retarded kid with the helmet on who's keeping himself from bouncing into the walls, and they're thinking that they're giving these kids the normal tests that everybody else is getting, and that's not what's happening. We're talking about maybe somebody who has dyslexia or a mild form of something like that, a learning disability, who are in normal classes and who are still expected to learn the material.
And they're trying to couple these regular students in with these special education kids. That's not the way it works. We're going to talk to you about this. We want to know if you think these tests are fair, if you think this lawsuit is justified, these kids who are suing because they don't like these education standards tests that they have to pass in order to be promoted onto the next grade level. And all of the kids, by the way, all of the 14 kids and their parents who have filed this lawsuit, all the 14 kids failed the tests. It wasn't just minority kids either. There were some white kids in there. No Asians, though. We want to talk to you about this. We want to know if you think these tests are fair or not. The number is 290-0058, 290-0058. Toll free 1-800-329-5858, 1-800-329-5858, or just hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless services phone, and the call is free.
And please, if you are a stupid Asian person, my God, give us a call so we can put an end to this.
It won't happen. We should just take an entire hour of our show where we ask people to call in, and if they know a stupid Asian person, if they they can actually produce a stupid Asian person, I'll renege.
Well, I'll be willing to work that into this program. So if you do,
On your side. Home Team Services.
now to News
Talk 580 WDBO. Thanks for tuning in to the Scott and Casey Show. He's Scott and I'm Casey. This is where we talk about the issues you really care about every Monday through Friday from 3 to 7 p.m. right here on the lowest rated talk show in all of Central Florida.
And we've got partly cloudy skies in the forecast for tonight with a 20% chance of rain and a low of 74 degrees. Tomorrow and Friday, we're looking at partly sunny skies, a really good chance of afternoon thunderstorms each day, and a high each day of 92. Right now, it's 89 degrees at News Talk 580 WDBO.
290-0058, 290-0058. Toll free 1-800-329-5858, 1-800-329-5858, or just hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless services phone. And the call is free. Want to know if you're in favor of the state education standards test, that movement that's sweeping the nation now, in which basically all they do at the end of the year, near the end of the year, they bring the kids in, they give them a standardized test on reading and mathematics. They figure out if they've learned what they needed to know in order to be promoted to the next grade. If they fail the test, they're not promoted to the next grade. If they pass the test, they move on and everything's wonderful.
Actually, in all fairness, another thing is done too. In the cases of students with a C average or better, they can appeal to the district to move on if they don't pass that test.
Yeah, well, they should pass the test if they have a C or better.
Well,
they're not
course.
passing the standardized test.
But I guess basically maybe they're covering their butts with that, saying maybe somebody had a bad day, but they still know all the information in those circumstances.
14 students and their parents are suing a school district over its policy that automatically denied these kids promotion unless they passed the reading and mathematics test. It was an equal protection complaint. It was brought by a mix of white, black, and Hispanic students, all of whom failed the test.
What a coincidence.
I wonder if there's any record anywhere of a student wanting to bring a lawsuit against a school for actually passing something.
Right.
Probably never happens. And they said that it wasn't fair because it wasn't fair to the students. All it really did was show that the teachers weren't really teaching very well, and the students shouldn't be expected to learn if the teachers aren't teaching very well.
What they would prefer to see happen is to look at the kids' work over the year, give them a series of different tests, and sort of, I guess, maybe a 2 out of 3 ain't bad kind of situation.
No, you know what they would rather have happen is like in the old days where if you came to class during the first day and you were still there at the last day, they moved you on into the next grade regardless. That's what they would like to see happen.
That's something they're doing in Alachua County as well. I forget what it's called now, like the
feel good nonsense.
Yeah, it's that thing where basically if you're there on the last day, you get to move on to the next grade, no matter if you got F's all the way through.
Yeah, that's the way school was when I was in it. I mean, I passed, but I mean that's the way they did it. You were there, you moved on. They didn't have time to deal with it. They didn't have time to teach you. My God.
My God, man.
They were teachers. Now, when he was asked about the test, Johnston County School Superintendent James Cosby, he said that they were not only free of bias, but also an appropriate measure of student performance. He said they are used to give us information about students and about schools and how they are meeting the curriculum. And obviously, these students aren't dealing with the curriculum properly because there's only 14 of them, and I can't imagine how many students are in this school. But I'm sure it's more than like 15, 16, so I'm sure this isn't the vast majority of students who are failing the test and are suing.
Apparently I believe all the others are Asian, though.
Oh, well, see, they're all smart.
No!
Proving my point
Stop
again.
it! I was being ridiculous!
There is no such thing as a stupid Asian person. Now, lawyers...
Headache.
Lawyers will produce one.
Produce one. I don't need to produce one. I don't need to show you one. It's a ridiculous theory on your part that all Asians are smart.
Show me one. Show me an article about one. Tell me a rumor you've heard about a stupid Asian person. You can't because they don't exist.
Tell me about the... We're getting off on the topic here, but tell me about what are some of the rumors they have about white people?
White people are stupid.
Okay, you're telling me that there isn't a single white person we can find who can dance. That's what you're telling me.
Well, that's ridiculous. But I'm telling you, because I've met white people who can dance and never met a stupid Asian guy.
You need to get out. Maybe you need to get out a little bit. But I'm not willing to make that assumption. Now we can move on with the topic.
No such thing, I'm telling you. Now, lawyers for the suing families, the stupid 14 we'll be referring to them as, said the plaintiffs objected not to the standardized testing in itself, but instead to school officials relying solely on one set of tests in determining whether or not to promote the students. You mean these standardized basic reading and math tests? Those silly little things? The
ones that basically cover the curriculum that your child was supposed to learn during the last year?
If they would have been studying that the majority of this of students nationwide, I mean, I read something on it, and it's like less than less than like 12% of students, I think, that fail these tests. Just miserably fail these tests. All right, so 14 students. Okay, if you're talking like 12% of the students nationwide that might be having trouble with these tests, then it's not inconclusive, but it's ridiculous to assume that these tests aren't fair when the vast majority of students are actually passing them. The lawyer, Norman Chachkin, who's with the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund Incorporated, so he's not trying to make this a race issue. He says the misuse of tests is a widespread phenomenon. A phenomenon is something that rarely happens, by the way. That misuse is going unchallenged. It's a widespread phenomenon.
That's good.
That's
very good. I didn't even pick up on that.
Phenomenons are things that don't always. That's why they're phenomenons.
Yeah,
okay?
Seeing a ghost would be considered a phenomenon.
Yeah, not everybody sees a ghost. Okay, see, and this guy's obviously knows he's wrong about this. Well, we want to talk to you about it. We want to know if you think these standardized tests are unfair because there's 14. The stupid 14 are suing their school district because they failed a test that would have allowed them to be promoted to the next grade. They don't think that test is fair because what business do the lawmakers and the school board have telling them that they have to learn a certain amount of information in order to be promoted to the next grade? They were there, 45% of the time, I'm sure. That's more than plenty to get promoted. The number's 290-0058, 290-0058, toll-free 1-800-329-5858, 1-800-329-5858, or just hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless services phone, and the call is free.
When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the comments of Norman Chachkin, the lawyer with the NAACP, and I'll tell you what I think he means when he refers to the...
News Talk 580 WDBO. Thanks for tuning into the Scott and Casey Show. He's Scott and I'm Casey. This is where we talk about the issues you really care about every Monday through Friday from 3 to 7 p.m., like it or not.
And look at you, lucky you. Dr. Laura, after the news is 7 o'clock.
You didn't know what the hell you were saying.
I had no idea. After the news is 7 o'clock, it's Dr. Laura right here on WDBO.
Coming up in about 30 minutes from now, in Hollywood, Florida, police are going to try to nip prostitution in the bud, or at least embarrass the Johns by sending home letters to the families of Johns who are caught with prostitutes to warn them about sexually transmitted diseases. That'll be fun.
Little Johnny was out playing with someone else.
It was Big Johnny was playing with Little Johnny with someone else. I think that's the problem. We'll talk to you about that, find out what you have to say. All that's coming up in about 30 minutes right here on the Scott and Casey Show.
When the year ends, at the end of the school year, the children are ushered into a room where they take a test that basically says, hey, did you learn something during the year?
And some kids didn't pass that test, and now they're suing because they think the standardized tests for reading and mathematics are unfair. 290-0058, 290-0058, toll-free 1-800-329-5858, 1-800-329-5858, or just hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless services phone, and the call is free. Let's talk to Ann in Apopka. Ann, you're on News Talk 580 WDBO with Scott and Casey. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
My son did pass the standardized testing, and he was promoted or continued to be promoted to each grade. But during the school year, on his report cards and midterms, he's getting Fs.
Well, you shouldn't get promoted then.
That's what I said. And when we questioned the school system, why is he being promoted to 5th grade when this child has got 3 Fs and 2 Cs? Well, because he passed this test. So...
Well, maybe an argument can be made that, whether he did well or not during the school year, he obviously knows the material that he was supposed to be learning.
This is true, but don't you have to apply what you know?
Well, that's how you're applying.
And if you don't apply it for a whole year, what are you being promoted for?
Well, but, look, I agree with you, but what I'm saying here is that maybe they're looking at it this way. Even without applying it for an entire year, this guy knew enough to be able to apply it to this test and prove that he has the knowledge, therefore,
No, you know what they do with these children? They prep them for 2 weeks in advance before this test.
So, well, it's not right what happened to your kid, Ann. We're not saying that we rely solely on
these... They do rely solely on that.
I'm not saying that that's right either, Ann, but I'm telling you, that's why the situation exists, that if you have a student who has a C average or better, they can appeal. Obviously, your kid has other problems that you, as a parent, need to deal with at home, getting them into some kind of a special training class. Do you
have any children in the public school system?
Oh, no, here we go.
No, Ann, I don't.
Okay.
I have a dog, though.
Well, I'd much rather have a dog. At least they don't talk back.
Well, you know what? what, though, Ann? I mean, Ann, I just don't think that, granted, I don't have any kids in the public school system, neither does Scott, but still, if I did have kids in the public school system, I wouldn't be happy with them using the standardized test in the instance if my child had some sort of other special educational deformity, like ADD or something like that. But in this instance, I mean, you have some kids here who failed the test, who, if they were getting good grades throughout the course of the year, they could appeal and get promoted, and they can't do that, so they're filing a lawsuit. It's a little bit different situation. And you, as the parent in your situation, you need to take an active role in holding your kid back. A parent can hold a child back if they don't think that the child knows what he's supposed to know, and you need to take that active role. And you need to get your kid into some special classes so that he's applying what he's learning all through the course of the year and not through just on these standardized tests when it comes down to crunch time, because obviously your kid is learning the information because he's able to apply it. Well, thanks for calling Scott and Casey on News Talk 580 WDBO.
Yeah, and it's very different when you've got a bunch of people who want to be promoted without having the knowledge, and a kid who is being promoted and you don't think he should be.
Yeah, and obviously your kid's not stupid. I mean, Ann, when she called in, obviously the kid's not an idiot, okay, because he's able to pick up on the stuff. He's just having other problems that don't really apply to the traditional educational process. I mean, we're assuming all these kids who are suing because they haven't said anything different are kids who just have normal educational backgrounds and don't have any special educational needs. Obviously, Ann's kid had a special educational need, and it shouldn't apply to her on the same way. But that's partially the parent's responsibility too. And she can take an active role in that. She has to get her kid in the special classes so that he can apply what he needs to apply throughout the whole course of the year. And like I said, obviously he's not an idiot because he was able to do it on the standardized test.
That's right, and that shows an application of the knowledge.
Now, the policy for the test requires that all students from 3rd through 8th grade achieve a specified score on the state reading and math test before they could be promoted to the next grade, regardless of their performance in class. Now, obviously, if you're failing through class, I would think a child would be held back. If your child is they shouldn't be, and that could be another flaw in the system. They shouldn't be just basing it solely on this test at the end of the year. Otherwise, what's the point in going to school at all? If you can just prep for a period of time and figure the information out 2 weeks before the test and take this test and then move on. Obviously, that could be a flaw too. But in the case of these 14 kids who are suing, the North Carolina kids, they all failed the test. And they weren't maintaining a level of to pass on to the next grade throughout the course of the year. Otherwise, they could have appealed. So these kids are a different situation here.
And we can call it unfair, but I mean, we're doing these kids a favor because, sure, yeah, it sucks that they're going to be held back in the same grade that they were already in, but you know what? It would suck even more to have these 14 kids in the next grade not knowing a damn thing about what it is they're supposed to do.
Something that parents never realize, I think, is because everybody separates their kids. Everybody thinks it's okay, I'm concerned with my kid, I'm concerned with this kid, and that's why you get parents who don't get involved in school processes. A series of stupid kids, or sub-performing kids, if you will, some other euphemism I can come up with to make everybody happy, that affects the whole classroom. Okay, that brings down the whole level of the classroom. If you have kids who don't understand, then the teachers have to spend extra time with those kids in order to try to make them understand. And if the teachers have to spend extra time with these kids who didn't learn what they should have learned in the grade before or even the grade before that, then it takes time away from teaching the kids who are supposed to be there, who are supposed to be at this level. And that's something I think these parents who are helping these kids sue need to understand, is that if they win their lawsuit, they won't. I mean, it's just ridiculous to even assume that they would, but they won't. But if they do, it causes more harm to their children and to the children of the other kids in the classroom, and that's one of the real problems here. That's why the standardized test is needed, to be able to separate the kids out. Okay,
well, they don't want to embarrass their kids, but their kids will be embarrassed when they don't have the knowledge that they're supposed to have, and they won't know how to apply it when they need to.
Bringing the lawsuit embarrasses the kids. Bringing the lawsuit up and saying, "Hey, look, my kid failed the test. My kid didn't have the grades to get promoted anyway. My kid didn't have a C average, so I couldn't appeal the standardized test, so that means he's going to be held back." Announcing that on the national news service, that causes more embarrassment to the kids than it does just to have them held back within the confines of their one little school, maybe going to summer school or something like that. There has to be some other avenue that they can take here in order to satisfy the requirements to move on to the next grade. Instead, they take it on a national level. What kind of harm is being done to these kids anyway? I'm sure the kids are named in the lawsuit. I'm sure they're the plaintiffs, among the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, but I bet half half of them would rather just sit around at home and not be bothered by this because of the embarrassment on the national level. Kids know when they're not performing it that well, and kids know the stigma that's attached to that. They're not as stupid as we give them credit for being.
We're talking about these 14 North Carolina students who are suing a North Carolina school district as well as their parents over these standardized reading and mathematics tests. At the end of a school year, you're given these tests to see if you learn anything during that year, and if you don't pass them, then you get held back. And they're claiming that it's a violation of their rights, and they even implicated that there was a racial thing going on there as well.
Yeah, the NAACP is involved. They're Legal Defense and Educational Fund Incorporated. Lawyer Norman Chachkin, he said, the misuse of tests is a widespread phenomenon, which means it's very widespread, but it rarely ever happens. That's what a phenomenon is, something that rarely ever happens.
Even though he used the wrong word, we know what he's trying to say.
Well, he's trying to use double talk is what he's trying to do. I'm sure he knew exactly what he was trying to say. He was using a lot of big words to try to impress a lot of people, saying it's a widespread and it's a phenomenon, so he's giving himself an out. He can say, well, it was just a phenomenon that happened in this one little case. If he loses, he's protecting the funding for the NAACP here is all he's trying to do at the cost of these students.
One thing I would like to say about these racial implications, they say that their complaint says that the tests violated the rights of minority children who had disproportionately low scores. When you combine that with the comment made by this guy Norman Chachkin of the NAACP and the misuse of these tests, you know what that's telling me? I'm hearing this over and over again about how these tests are race biased, how no black kids can understand these tests purely based on the white wording of the tests.
Oh, that was a big thing a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hearing when I'm hearing these comments being made.
Yeah, that everything is biased against minorities, even though in this lawsuit that he's helping to defend, there's a mix of black, white, and Hispanic kids. So, I mean, stupidity knows no boundaries. Stupidity knows no racial boundaries, and if the kids don't know the information, they don't get moved on. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's why we need the standardized test to figure out if the kids do know the information, and if they don't, they stay back until they learn it. I mean, it's really simple to me. I don't know why adults have to get involved and complicate it all. And we want to know what you think about these standardized tests for reading and mathematics. We want to know if you think they're fair, or if you agree with this lawsuit that these kids have, that they're unfair and there's no way they should be forced to be tested to find out if they know the information to be promoted in the next grade. That would just be ridiculous and unfair. The number is 290-0058, 290-0058, toll-free 1-800-329-5858, 1-800-329-5858, or just hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless services phone, and the call is free.
It's always the attitude of not my child. How dare you fail my child? Back with more.
From the real Yellow Pages.
Did you hear that? There's a naked man on the freeway.
Go for it. News Talk 580 WDBO. Well, you seemed really excited about it.
Well, no, I just found that.
I can handle the show if you want to head out there.
Stop it. I guess I'm the only one who found that odd. I guess I'm weird that way. Naked people on the freeway is odd to me. I guess you and your red light district ways, probably it's just everyday occurrence.
Your tone wasn't so much odd as excited. That's where I caught weird. News Talk 580 WDBO. Thanks for tuning in to the Scott and Casey Show. He's Scott and I'm Casey. This is where we talk about the issues you really care about every Monday through Friday from 3 to 7 p.m. right here on the lowest rated talk show in all of Central Florida.
We got partly cloudy skies in the forecast for tonight with a 20% chance of rain, a low of 74 degrees. Tomorrow and Friday, partly sunny skies, a very good chance of afternoon thunderstorms each day, and a high each day of 92. Right now it's 82 degrees at News Talk 580 WDBO.
290-0058, 290-0058, toll free 1-800-329-5858, 1-800-329-5858, or just hit pound 580 on your AT&T wireless services phone. The call is free. We're talking to you about the standardized test to find out if your kids know enough about reading and mathematics in order to be promoted onto the next grade. There's 14 students in North Carolina who don't think the test is fair. These are the 14 students who failed the test and didn't maintain a C average throughout the year so they could appeal the decision. We want to know if you think these tests are fair to people. Let's talk to Jamie on a car phone in Orlando. Jamie, you're on News Talk 580 WDBO with Scott and Casey. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I wanted to really comment on the part where they say the test is racially biased and
Yeah, the
as
racially...
far as like they're minorities so they can't comprehend.
Right.
I think it's a big cop-out.
Of course it is.
They need to just, and the parents, I can't believe it. They need to be slapped. It's like, wake up. These tests have been going on for years.
Are you a minority?
And yes, I am a minority.
What race are you?
I'm black.
You're black?
And I got to school perfectly fine with no problem.
Wow.
And I'm upset about, all of a sudden now we have a problem. And That's like the ebonics thing.
You know what? You know what,
it's
Jamie?
Ridiculous.
Jamie, you know what? You're really not using this whole black thing to your advantage, I don't think. You really have to play the victim role a little bit better.
Yeah.
I mean, you get free. Hey, free government money.
It's ridiculous, though. It's ridiculous. It's like, I mean, if I...
Oh, wait a minute. You're one of these black people who wants to get by on her own, aren't you?
Well, you're human. You're supposed to. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean...
You know what?
I cannot go into a store and say, hey, I'm black. Give me something. You know, it doesn't work.
Yeah, you should.
That should be right.
The way America works.
Hey, you know what? You're just making things harder for your entire race when you try to get it by on your own intelligence there, Jamie. I hope you realize you're just screwing up the whole party.
Well, I'm sorry.
Right.
And I hope there's a lot more people out there like me. Because if I did that, my mother, she wouldn't have it.
Well, I tell you what, I hope they keep their mouths shut because, we wouldn't want those minorities having to get by on the same by the same standards that other people would be. Jeez.
Thanks for the call, Aunt Thomasina.
Yeah. Thanks for calling Scott and Casey on News Talk 580 WDBO.
She does make a good point,
minorities getting by on their own.
I mean, that was one of the most absurd things I had ever heard. Black kids can't understand, even though they may know the math or they may know the English or they may understand the reading and the writing and all of that, on these tests, since they're worded for only white people, somehow they can't understand. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Hey, trace that call so we can make sure that...
we don't need her causing trouble.
We don't need her causing trouble about the... I was kidding. I don't really want the call. They all jump into action. Yesterday I tried to get the guy to call the Vatican. He wouldn't do it because he's afraid of the Pope. And now he's like, I want him to trace phone calls. He's like, yeah, I'm all over it.
I'd like to turn to Robert and follow that logic. Explain to me, once we called her back and got her number, who are we going to report her to? I'd like to know from you. Who did you think we would report her to?
The Agency of Black Advancement? What is that?
Are we calling Jesse Jackson and telling on her or something?
I'm just here for you. Whatever you want.
Okay, yeah. Unless we want you to call the Pope, right? Then you're not there for us. Let's go real quick. Do we have time? Let's talk to Charlie in St. Cloud. Charlie, you're on News Talk 580 WDBO with Scott and Casey. Go ahead. You're not another one of those troublemaking minorities who are getting by on your own standards there, are you?
No, I'm a white guy. I'm sorry about that.
Hey,
can you tell me if the kids up there, did they miss a lot of time but when they took the test or what?
We don't know. All we can tell you almost for sure is that they failed the test and they probably did not maintain a C average throughout the course of the year because had they done that, they would have been able to appeal the decision.
Well, they're playing this thing. You got to be a victim nowadays to get in there. So they're going to win both ways.
And you know what they're doing? You know what they're getting their parents to basically say, "Ooh, it's too embarrassing for me to admit my son or daughter is a failure, so it's not their fault they failed these tests and the tests are unfair."
Or they can always sue the parents, get money out of their house,
That's true.
like that, or sue the county, even better. Make millions of dollars.
You know what, Charlie? Lawsuits make the world go round. Thanks for that good call. Thanks for calling Scott and Casey on News Talk 580 WDBO.
That's the American way.
It really is, at least these days. Thanks, everybody, for calling News Talk 580 WDBO. Thanks for tuning into the Scott and Casey Show. He's Scott and I'm Casey. It's where we talk about the issues you really care about every Monday through Friday from 3 to 7 right here on the lowest rated talk show in all of Central Florida.
Make sure you stay tuned after the news at 7 o'clock for Dr. Laura.
When we come back, we're going to talk to you about some police who are releasing letters to the families of Johns who have been arrested for dealing with prostitutes about the dangers of sexually transmitted diseases. We'll take your phone calls and find out what you have to say. All that's coming up next right